Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things?
I am TJ,
And I'm MJ.
and this is a low-key ghetto Bible study. And this week we may be putting some more ghetto than usual.
Yeah. There are lots of screaming cats in our neighborhood, so beware, you may hear some of that.
Yes.
And another disclaimer we need to do for this episode, something we never thought we'd have to do for a Bible study is include a trigger warning. This chapter has mentions of sexual assault. Although, based on we did that side conversation on censoring the Bible, we should have known this was coming.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes. So trigger warning, sexual assault.
So this is the point where we usually invite you to pause and say a prayer before we get into it.
All right. So TJ will take us through. We're looking at Genesis chapter 19.
All right. So this was one of the longer chapters. I think this maybe have been maybe we had a long chapter in Esther, but as far as I'm concerned, this may have been one of the longest chapters we've done. So instead of splitting it in half, I split it into thirds. I'm not sure if my thirds are cohesive, but let's go. So the first third looks at verses 1 to 11, and I get the impression that it's a continuation from chapter 18.
Right. Yeah.
Because it starts by saying at the end of the day. So I'm assuming it's at the end of the day, chapter 18. Right?
Okay.
The two angels arrive in Sodom. And when they arrived, Lot was sitting at the city gate, and he immediately approaches them. He bows, and he invites them to come spend the night in his home. And their initial response is to decline, and they tell him they will spend the night in the streets. I guess it would be at the square in the city or whatever. But he insists, and they finally agree. And so they go home with him, and he makes them a feast. And he also bakes them unleavened bread, and they eat. But before they go to bed that night, the men of the city of Sodom, both the young and the old, surround the house, and they call out to Lot, "Where are the men you took in tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." Lot is very brave and goes outside to negotiate with the men. And he tells them, "Don't be so wicked. I have two virgin daughters, and let me bring them to you, and you can do whatever you please, you can do as you please with them. But do not interfere with the men who have come for shelter under my roof, sorry." And the men's response to Lot is to tell him, "Get out of the way. You are a foreigner. You are not even one of us. How dare you try to judge us?" And they pressed Lot, trying to get to the door. And just then, the two men who were inside, the angels, reached outside and they pulled Lot into the house and they closed the door. And they struck all the men outside the house with blindness so that they could not even find the door.
Okay. You read that, and I started to feel anxious. When you got to the part of them pushing against him, ready to break down the door, I started, my heart started to race. Because I'm just picturing that. These are adult men. Very likely, this is Sodom's army. Right? Because that's who goes to war. You might have had some of the old guys there who were not fit.
It's specified both young and old.
Right. So you have the young, fit men of the community. They're capable of pushing Lot out of the way and storming his house. Yeah. And imagining that made me very anxious. But I guess let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Yes.
So it just took me right back to chapter 18, right?
Right.
Because I'm like, did Lot recognize the strangers as angels? Did he recognize them as being divine beings? Because
I was just thinking, Lot, Abraham, they're hospitable guys.
Because he bows in a similar manner, and the invitation extended to me is offered in the same way. Come, wash your feet, have a meal. And I think he makes reference to them as my lords as well. I'm not sure.
I didn't take note of that.
There was a level of I almost want to say reverence, for lack of a better word. So I don't know if it's the case where, like his uncle, he was in tune with the divine and was able to identify them as being special, particular. But like you saying, it may just have been a case where he was just as hospitable as his uncle was.
I'm also thinking that Lot understanding where he lived, he I think this could have been a show of serious hospitality in that my home is the safest place for y'all.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And I think that's why he pressured them when they said, "No,
we'll go stay in
yeah.
this square. Yeah. So he's like, no, my home is the safest place for y'all. Come with me.
But I wonder if that was not a test on their end as well, because they knew why they came to Sodom
Well,
for,
yeah.
right? They knew what they were capable of doing in Sodom, and we see that in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But were they looking to see what Lot's reaction would have been?
That's possible. That's very possible. I feel like maybe it was not necessarily a test for like to show whether Lot was an okay dude, but a test for Lot himself.
Explain.
I don't know how to describe it. For him to see, like,
he was different.
No, I don't know. I'm thinking like for him to remember how bad of a place he lives in.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. I get you. So like a reality check.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. Which kind of leads into my next point, right? Because I'm honestly wondering, what kind of depraved society do you have to be living in for all the men of the city, both the young and the old, to come storm a house demanding?
Was it all of them? I don't know if it was all of them, but
it gives the impression that it was all of them.
Oh, right? Because Lot still has to go check his. So I don't know that it was everybody, but I think they were like, this is a large subset of the community, and we want you to know that it thinks the whole demographic, the young and the old. I don't know that it was everybody, because how do you get everybody?
And when I say everybody, I don't mean, because like it gave the impression that these were the men who were in the city itself. So they said the men of the city of Sodom. I think
it depends on what version you read, because
okay.
I think I got that the first time I read it, I got that impression that it was all of the men. But then the version I read to take my notes, I went back to read it, that section, and it was I wish I had the version with me. I don't have it with me.
What did you read it from?
I think it was NLT. It was giving the impression that it was just a lot of them, and they want you to know it's all ages, but not necessarily all of the thing. Because when I saw the part about his sons-in-law, I was like, were they there with the other guys? So I went back to read.
Chapter 19. Change to. Okay, so in its NLT, the NLT says, verse 4, but before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house.
Okay, so it couldn't have been NLT I was reading then. But okay, so yeah, so some of the versions say all. That is even more terrifying.
But like you were saying, later it makes mention of his sons-in-law, and I guess maybe they were not necessarily of the city of Sodom.
Okay.
There may be a differentiation between like the city itself, like where we live, we have the city and the district it's in have the same name, so it might have been a case like that.
Yeah.
So there's that toss up, but like I was mind blown that all of these men are here demanding 2 men. Like,
yeah, it's
the heights and depths of wickedness astonish me.
And this chapter just made me so upset. But before we get there, I was thinking, how did they know? Okay, is it that at evening people are still bustling about? Somebody would have seen the Lot bring these guys into his house. How does word travel throughout the city that, hey, Lot has some new fresh meat at his house?
There must have been, because like he met them at the city gate. People would have observed.
I just figure it's almost nighttime. It's time for people to go out their home.
Listen, where you live, when it's almost nighttime, is it time? No, it's not.
Fair enough.
And you don't live in the middle of a city.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And you always have busybodies. who are minding everybody's business and who don't know how to not talk.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
like there must have been somebody who started
Yeah.
and word
Okay.
spread.
And back to the depravity, I was like, they mentioned that they shout to Lot, where are the men in your house? We want to have sex with them, and that just gives us another idea that this is not something that
It's hush hush.
hush hush. It's like we will shout this. We don't care who hears.
Well, I mean, like, granted, we have like all the men in the city, so
fair enough. Like everybody will find out anyway.
There's no hushing
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, regardless of whether they were all the men in the city or not, if it was just a subgroup, I think Lot was a very, very brave man to go out to face them. I don't know if it's that he thought he had influence. I don't know if he thought he was a good negotiator, but I was just like, my man.
I think like in those situations, fight or flight, he felt that he needed to protect the people he had taken under his care.
Understood. But he didn't have to go outside. He didn't have to go outside.
That's true.
To face them. He could have spent his time barricading his door from the inside.
Yes. And shout out to them like they shouted into him. Yeah. But like there's this chapter in Genesis. I think there's a chapter in Judges with a similar plot point. And I get so upset every time I read these because I'm like, why is it not acceptable for these guys to want to have sexual relations with these men, and we, from the looks of it, non-consensually, but it's okay for that, like Lot is like the solution is for them to rape my daughters, like that, like these chapters just like further like ingrain in my brain the value of women in this society.
I think in this case, I think it may have been more complex than it just being he's diminishing the value of his daughters. Like we were saying in the beginning, there is the possibility that he may have recognized these individuals as being divine. Right? But in order to pacify the men outside, he has
tell them to go out their home.
But that if you have the whole city of men,
I'm sorry, but are his daughters not under his protection too?
But did he end up giving her his daughters? No.
He was willing to. That is my problem. That he was willing to. Children are heritage unto the Lord, right?
But I understand your point fully. I'm not saying he's justified in doing that. But I'm saying he must have been in an interesting position in the first place to go outside and face all those men.
I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate it, and I don't like Lot for doing that. I don't, and like I feel like this, for it to happen again in Judges, that it is unacceptable, because like the point that they are virgins, I think, was part of it.
Definitely.
And then to think, I don't know, the words are not coming. Like I just get so upset to think that, because I'm imagining being those girls inside hearing this conversation. All of the men in the community are outside your house and your father just offered you up. Like like how terrifying is that experience? How terrifying is that experience? And I think Lot immediately understands the terror of that, because in one of the versions I read, they like, oh, you're not letting us in? We'll do worse to you. And like, I don't think it should have taken that for him to understand like that, like yeah, these guys have reached the peak of depravity, and that is why you don't send your daughters out to them.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
I understand your point. But I'm also saying that Lot, like, well, granted that whole family is sus in my books.
Well,
like,
yeah, we continue and we like, and I think that is the product of them having lived in Sodom.
I'm not even talking about like that what we get to at the end of the chapter. I'm
Okay.
talking about the next morning, the very very next morning, and I guess we'll get to that in the next
Okay.
part.
Well, yeah.
Because like you say, you have this experience that night, and based on how they react the next morning, it doesn't add up. But we'll talk about
I
it.
don't know what you're
We'll
talking
talk about
about,
that.
so we'll get to it. Yeah. What was I? Oh, I was also noting that everybody in Lot's head, this is like he immediately labels them as wicked. What they want to do as wickedness, right? But they are like, you're not one of us. How dare you judge us? And I can't imagine how many times that could have happened to Lot, because it's clear that their morality, their values, um, are in stark contrast to each other. And so, how often in a day does Lot have an interaction with somebody from Sodom, and he has to like immediately, what's the word?
Backpedal?
Yeah, because recoil, because what is commonplace, what is acceptable in their society goes against everything he believes to be right.
My point on the note I made on that point was it was a little different from yours. It was about the same concept of them pointing you out as a foreigner, how they would judge them. But I was thinking about how long has Lot lived among them? Like some of these people may have not even been born, not been alive for as long as Lot may have been living here. And they're also very quickly forgetting the fact that it was Lot's uncle who rescued them like a couple of chapters back. So I think there is this in the height of their I also want to believe that those men were not sober as well.
Yes, I want to believe that as well.
But I think in the height of their thing, it's very in the height of not even just emotion, but like wickedness. We sometimes forget. I can't say we. People sometimes forget history and background and context, because this is the man who literally, in saving his life, his uncle saved all y'all. All y'all would have been dead. Y'all and your mamas.
Yeah. Or slaves somewhere, some random place. Yeah. It would be very easy. It's easy to forget that in the us versus
the heat
them.
of the moment. Yeah. Definitely. All right. You have anything else?
No, I think. Wait. Oh yeah, no.
Okay, so we're going verses 12 to 26. So the angels have just pulled Lot back into the house, and they immediately ask him, "Do you have anyone else in the city? Sons or daughters or in-laws? Go get them and leave, because we are going to destroy this place. The cries of the victims to God against the people who live here are too many, so we have been sent to destroy it." Now, I want to include a note here, right? Because all my life reading this, not necessarily reading this story, I don't know that I've read this story and not been traumatized, but like all my life hearing this story, I always got the impression that he went to his sons-in-laws who were the husbands of his daughters.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Giving the impression that he had other daughters.
Right.
But in studying it this time around, several versions that I've read were saying that these were the guys betrothed to the two daughters in the house.
Right.
So he went to his future potential son-in-law, and he tells them, "Leave this place, for the Lord will destroy it." But his sons-in-law laughed, taking him for a joke. So they go through the night, and the morning comes, and the angels hurry Lot, telling him to quickly take his wife and his daughters and leave, or they would be destroyed. When he hesitated, they held on to him, his wife and his daughters, and carried them safely out of the city. As soon as they were out of the city, they urged them to run. "Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere before you get to the mountains, or you will be destroyed." But Lot begged, and he said, "You have saved my life, so I know you care about my well-being. Please do not make me go to the mountains. What if something were to happen to me there and I die? There, Look, there's a little city nearby. Please let me go to it. The angel answered, okay, go ahead. We will do this for you. We will not destroy that city, but go quickly because I cannot do anything until you get there safely. And so the name of the city was called Zorah, which means small. By the time Lot got to Zorah, the sun had risen, and the Lord poured out fire and brimstone from heaven, destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. God wiped out those cities, their inhabitants, and everything around them. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. I think I want to start with my last my last note on this.
Mhm.
I was like, Lot's wife was the original salty woman.
I was confused as to how they knew she became a pillar of salt because they couldn't have looked back. But then it's possible that she was in front of the daughters, but behind. Because I read somewhere that she was following Lot, but she could have been in front of the daughters and behind Lot. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Or did they get to where they would realize she wasn't there and later go back and find her? Yeah.
I watched an adaptation. Like I like movie adaptations of Ruth and Esther. Not Ruth, Ruth and Esther. And occasionally I'll watch one of Genesis, Abraham, I think. And it was one I was watching. Very, very what do you call it? They took very many creative liberties. Just put it like that. And basically, they going and they realize she's not with them, and when they go back, they're able to identify her by a hair clip that Lot left put in her hair because it's on the floor next to the pillar of salt. And that's how they figure out what happened. My first note, like my first little note on that section is what I included in the portion about the sons-in-law, right? But what I have following that up is that their rejection of Lot's message of destruction made me think of Noah.
Yes, and I have that note. I was like, was the flood not a recent occurrence?
Like how many generations away are we? For y'all to have forgotten the ability of God to destroy everything.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that not a story you pass on to your children? Like next time you see a dude preaching that there's going to be destruction, listen to him. I don't know.
Whatever he says, you do it.
Yeah, I feel like that would be something that you pass on to your children. But then I guess
living in Sodom.
Yeah, we, and like you say, I wouldn't be surprised if they were rarely ever sober because, like we saying, they're living, I guess, recklessly
in the wildlife.
Yeah. So yeah, it's possible.
In the modern day, always high guys. Some of them might have been high too. We don't know because we don't know what. I was watching. I was watching a lot of documentaries, but I was watching this documentary on ancient Egypt, and they were talking about some of the things people used, not necessarily as narcotics, but like drugs, back in that time period. So it's very, very possible that they had
an array
spliff system. Okay, so this is what I was talking about when I was saying the family is sus, right? You just had a very, very traumatic experience as a family, right? And then you just realize that these two men who are with you made all the men of the city blind. And they tell you, hurry, run, and you hesitate.
Oh, okay.
For what? For why? For what? Like, I was reading it, like, I read it again, like, in the wee hours of this morning, being up and can't sleep. And I'm like, that it just doesn't make sense.
But I think that is the
humanity.
No, that is the thing that everybody tends to focus on in this when you're studying this chapter, a sense of loyalty. Exactly.
What?
They've moved here. They've made this place their home, and
just last night they reminded you were not one of them.
And so leaving apparently is difficult. And I'm sure they were not just leaving the city. I'm sure they were leaving all their sheep. Like to go from Lot after having lived with Abraham would not have been poor. So even in the separation between the two of them, I'm sure Abraham would have given him a little something, even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's leaving behind a wealthy existence to go into absolutely nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that um for his family, not just him, is a cause for hesitation.
But it's also death.
Well,
Like, on the flip side is death. So you stay with your things and die.
Yeah, that's the choice. That is the choice.
And like, for me, I guess I am not a parent, because I think being a parent, there would have been that additional of how do I provide for my children going forward. They've now lost their husbands, their future husbands.
True.
It's back to me to take care of them like perpetually for almost forever. So I guess there would have been that element. But you tell me, it's like, imagine your house is on fire.
Yeah, but that's the thing. People go back and grab stuff all the time. It's what you call it, a thing of value. Is my life more valuable than my things? It doesn't make sense, but I think that's just how a lot of people are.
Honestly, like, if our house, God forbid, right? If our house had to burn, right? The only things I would consider going back into the house for is the cats.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't leave. I don't think we would leave without the pets.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, what is there? Unless it's a situation where I'm not wearing enough clothes, and I can put on a hoodie or something. Outside of that, what is there?
I think it depends on what kind of fire. If it's still in a manageable place,
ma'am,
all of my instruments,
ma'am,
all of my instruments, all of my electronic devices.
Like, there things can go bad too quickly for me to be taking those risks.
No, it depends on how like if it's blaze, like roof blaze, pets.
Listen, my thing is my life strategy is my phone is in my hand 98% of the time. So if I'm running, odds are my phone is in my hand already. Everything else will have to stay. I like my life a little too much.
Documents, identification documents.
Fresh start. Brand new identity.
Those are the things that I would, depending on where how far the fire had been.
You brave.
No. It depends. I think it depends. But I was also thinking about, like, literally all the dudes being blind, and then all of a sudden stuff, like, how traumatic that would be. The world around you is being destroyed by fire and brimstone. You cannot see what's happening. So you smelling, I am assuming, sulfur. You feeling the burns. You hearing screaming and things falling from the sky, and you don't know what's going on. That's, like, to me, that sounds like a terrible way to go. I don't know.
Sip my tea. I don't know. I guess I should be more. I would say I should be more merciful, but God was not. So who am I to play God? I don't know. But I never considered that they were still blind when it started. I never processed that. That's crazy.
Maybe they were not. Maybe the blindness was only in temporary to get the
people out. Again, I feel like Lot does not understand the urgency of the situation.
Yeah.
Because they're like, run to the mountains. And he's like, but wait. Look, alas, a little city. Let me go there.
But that thing, that brings, that looks like that was Lot's life. In not in that sense, but I like that this Lot's network always seems to benefit from his protection and his favor. Lot let his family get kidnapped. Abraham comes with an army and frees everybody. Lot gets brings in the angels to his home. They tell him, go warn people. So if his sons-in-law had taken him on, they would have been safe too. Lot's family gets rescued. And then in choosing the little town, that little town gets
potentially saved. That's true. That's a valid point. But one of the things I thought about when I read it from the King James Version, is that it had this line, "If I have found favor in thy sight," and it took me right back to when we were studying Esther. And I was like, that's an interesting. I'm trying to remember. Did this happen before? I was like, it's interesting to see the way appeals were made to people that were
in power,
or
positions of
seen
power.
in positions of power and reference. So that was an interesting thought for me.
I was not going in order. There was something else I wanted to talk about. The angels say that there's been an outcry to the Lord, and I was wondering if that was a literal thing, because I'm mixing up two things we're studying. I was thinking about it in Exodus when
God says, "I've heard the cries."
cry. So I was wondering if it was a literal thing, and I would be wondering who's crying. Is it like the heaven is crying out? Is it that the neighboring communities? Because I'm sure
they were terrorists.
They were like they would have been doing what you call illegal trading, or they would have been pilfering, or they would not be fun to trade with. They always cheat you. There would be corruption. There would be kidnapping, all kinds of stuff.
Assault, like we saw.
Right. So like their neighboring
one of the versions said the victims of Sodom. So it could have potentially been like servants or slaves they had, like you saying, could have been neighboring communities, like anybody who they were mistreating and abusing.
Okay.
God was hearing those people's cries, because that would have been everybody.
Well, yeah.
Because it would have even been people among themselves, because they were just bad men and
slapping people.
That's Nineveh.
That's Nineveh. Okay.
What else?
I think my things are the next part.
Okay, so I have a couple more points. Like I said, I have a lot of points to this, right? This whole thing. Here's my question. Lot says, don't make me go to the mountain. I might die. Something might happen to me and I'll die. And I'm wondering, like, you just had divine beings rescue you from a city, right? Like, personally hold your hand and take you out of a city that's about to be destroyed. Do you not think that there's some divine being looking out for your well-being who would protect you in the mountain? It gave me very much his uncle Abraham, who would be like, "Yes, God, I believe." But how? I'm like, I'm so sick of these men. I'm so sick of these men. Take down the patriarchy.
And the beauty is that God didn't get sick of them.
Maybe he should. And I think my last point, because I started with my very, very last point. My last point is that I have this tendency to judge Lot's wife. Like, they told you don't look back. They told you. That was like, there was a thing. Go quickly, don't look back. Don't stop until you get to the mountains. Like, those were the 3 basic instructions. And then they even took out the don't stop until you get to the mountains. It was go quickly, don't look back, go to Zoar as quickly as possible. Like, that was it. That's all they had to do. But then I was thinking about it, right? And it's like you were saying, there's that idea of leaving everything you had behind. But then I was thinking about it, and there was just also the element of sheer curiosity, because I can imagine they can hear the destruction. Yeah. Like, depending on how close they are, they may be able to hear the people. And I feel like we see it all the time. On social media, there are gunshots and people going to watch. There's an accident, everybody wants to go see. So there's just this stupid human instinct to just want to see, look. And I think that may have been like her downfall, because like literally she fell down as a pillar of salt. But I understand. Like, I just make bad decisions. All of that. Who am I? Like the people. I am not one of them. Who am I to judge? I'm a foreigner. You know?
Yeah. I could understand why she would look back.
Okay, you're saying you have nothing else in that section?
No.
Okay. All right. So our third and final section is verses 27 to 38. And this new section starts by telling us we've taken a break from Lot, and it takes us over to Abraham. And it says, early the next morning, Abraham goes back to the place where he had stood and spoken to the Lord, presumably the day before. And he looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and he saw smoke rising from the land like the smoke from a furnace. It was thick and dense. And so when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he was mindful of Abraham, and he got Lot out first. And then we fast forward and we come back to Lot. And it says that Lot was afraid to stay in Zoar. So he and his 2 daughters moved into a cave in the mountains. One day the older daughter said to her sister, our father is getting old and there are no men around to have children with. Let us get our father drunk and sleep with him so we can continue our family line. So that same night they gave him wine, and the older sister slept with him, and he had no idea what happened. And the next night they got him drunk again, and the younger sister slept with him, and he was completely out of it. Both of Lot's daughters got pregnant by him. The older had a son she called Moab, and he became the father of the Moabites. The younger sister had a son that she called Ben-Ami, and he became the father of the Ammonites.
Okay. You read something there that I had never processed. It said that the angels got Lot out first, and that implies that other people may have been gotten out by the angels.
I don't know that that's necessarily the case.
I think it's possible, because all it means is that there were less than 10 of them.
Okay, fair enough. Because that was my thing, right? Because my note was that even though the agreement between God and Abraham was the city had to be saved for 10 righteous, God was deliberate in saving Lot even when the 10 could not be found.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you're rightly saying, maybe there were other people.
And I think
because my use of first meant that he got him out before the destruction, not necessarily that he got him out as the first set of people.
Okay,
so, but it's always possible.
I feel like there's so many like in reading the Bible, we're just getting one perspective, and so there may have been so many of God's people that just were not written about. So, it's a possibility. It just meant that there were less than 10 of them, and I was thinking as well that God's decision to destroy the place was sealed. So even if Lot and his family decided to stay, they would have been destroyed too, despite their being righteous and yeah.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
And I like that we came back to Abraham, so like he can know that
not even 10.
Yeah.
Not even 10.
These people he was what you call it? Advocating for. Yeah. Not even 10 of them. He's seeing the smoke and he could
I find it funny that the Lot ended up in the same mountains he was trying to avoid. Like, you know, oh, okay, no, that's not. I was about to say something there, but it's in my it's in my lessons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Them daughters. Them daughters.
The last part of this chapter is just a little.
I don't understand. Like
Okay, so my note literally says, right, that incest seems to have been less of a concern in the Old Testament. Because, like, we have Abraham married to his whole half sister.
But right? Not like that.
No, like, I'm not justifying. Because I said, right, I'm going to read it for you, right? Incest seems to have been less of a concern in the Old Testament. But processing daughters basically getting their father drunk and raping him is just, I have no words. Like, that is literally what I have. I have no words.
Like, that had to have been an influence of Sodom, because how do they know how do they come up with that idea? How do you come up with that idea? That had to have been an influence of living in Sodom. Like, I don't understand. And it goes back to the whole, these people didn't trust God, because
okay, yeah.
Lot, it doesn't think God could protect him in the mountains. The women don't think God could find husbands for them. Yeah. So it all leads back to that. They are not
Abraham.
Yeah. Let's say that, because Abraham
has a journey.
Yes.
Abraham has a journey, but Lot just plateaus. Lot and his daughters just plateau.
Yeah, like, God just saved y'all from certain death. You don't think like he has a solution to continue your bloodline. You don't think so? And also, like, I'm Lot, and I'm like, go to the mountains and I might die. I'm like, I just need to find my Uncle Abraham. Uncle Abe, find him and we'll be good.
But I guess that might have meant going. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Abraham was close enough for them to see.
Yeah, yeah. I just need to find my uncle and we good.
We know. We've since from this chapter gathered that our brother Lot was not the brightest of men. He just was not with it at all. But
What else I think is that, like, I'm sure, like, Lot, after the fact, his daughters just suddenly get pregnant. like he had, he had to have put it together.
Yeah.
Literally, I looked at the notes. The version I read, the notes are the names.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes.
these girls literally name these kids son of my father,
Child of my father's people.
Yeah.
Of my father, Moab is of my father, and of my father's people.
So like they were not even trying to hide it. This is years, too many years, thousands of years before the Immaculate Conception.
They're not even trying to claim they married.
Yeah. So, like, it's just, they lived in Sodom too long.
But my last point, right? Because I was saying I have 2 points. They got the descendants that they wanted, who turned out to be the enemies of the descendants of Abraham. I thought that was an interesting spin, because I'm like, y'all family though. But y'all warring right through. And then that brought me to the last point I had, because I was listening to our recordings of Ruth last night. And Ruth was a Moabite, which means she was a descendant of Lot.
What?
Which technically means that she was a long lost relative of both of her husbands. Bring us back. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a very, like, and I think that was very interesting that I listened to it last night, and I made my final note this morning, and it kind of clicked. I was like, Father the Moabites? Ruth was a Moabite.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Too close. Too close. All right, so what are your lessons about God? You share.
Okay, so this one is not necessarily a pleasant one. It's that, like, we keep seeing, especially in the Old Testament, that God is capable of extreme destruction and punishment. And I think as Christians, a lot of the time we focus on the God of mercy and the God of love and the God who rescues and delivers. And we don't process that in a lot of the situations where he's rescuing somebody, he's destroying somebody else. And that these are two sides of the same coin. It's just that usually our hero, or we are on the
underdog side.
On the underdog side. And it's just a reminder that, God is this complex being that is not only about mercy, and it's
more about justice.
And it's not that he's more about justice either. It's that he can be both. Those two are not mutually exclusive. He can be a God of mercy and a God of justice. Yeah.
But I guess that dips a bit into the concept of salvation here. But I think his justice includes mercy.
They're not separate things. Yeah.
My first one is that God will do as much as he can to save us. Regardless of the situation. He literally sent angels in there who were almost like, not almost, because like they would have fended for themselves. We saw that. But like he literally sent 2 angels in there just to rescue Lot. And they had to be holding Lot's hand to get him out. But God was willing to do whatever was necessary to save Lot. Which I want to weave into my second point, where I want to say that God sees the desires of our hearts and acts accordingly. Now, what am I saying? I think God understood that Abraham's negotiation was to save Lot.
Mm.
And so while it like their agreement was void because
There were not 10 people.
they were not 10 people, God understood that at the root of it, at the heart of Abraham's negotiation, was his nephew Lot and his family. And God went as far as giving Abraham the desire of his heart, even when it was an outside of the original agreement.
Okay. Yeah. That's
so
beautiful.
I think that he has our negotiations tactics, right? But he also sees the heart of the desire and the heart of
Right.
what we were asking for, and he gives us that, even when the other criteria is not met.
Okay. Yeah. I think that mine is a shade of that. I was saying that God will send angels to rescue his people. But also, he will hold off punishment to, like, he's willing to do that. Like, he's planned punishment to save, like, a few. And we see him make that negotiation with Abraham, and we see him save the city of Zoar, because even though Lot doesn't stay there, because the angels could have been like, we know you're not going to stay there, go to the mountains. But the city of Zoar is saved because Lot decided he wanted to live there. And so that's interesting and amazing to me, like you saying that God will, just because this is important to Abraham, he will tweak. Well, I don't know if it's tweaking his plan, but he will find a way to take care of Abraham and his desires, but also accomplish his purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any more lessons about God. You have any?
No.
Lessons about like how I need to live my life again, like smack dab. God hit me in the forehead with this 2 chapters in a row. I need to be kind and hospitable.
I didn't even process that. Okay.
I may be entertaining angels unaware.
Yes. I only got 2 lessons from this, and it was that it was a reminder that, despite God being capable of this kind of destruction, I don't need to fear him, because I can trust him that if it's necessary, he will rescue me. Yeah. And then the next one is that I think it's a lesson from Lot and his family. I think it's easy to be like, a lot of us don't. I don't know if I'm talking about it literally or figuratively. Like, in the literal sense, a lot of us don't have control over the environment we're in. Literally, right? And also, up to a certain age, figuratively as well, we don't have control over that. But I think it's important to be deliberate about the environment we create for ourselves, the people we associate with, and pay attention to their beliefs, pay attention to their values, and deliberately align ourselves with people who share our values, share our morals, share our purpose, share the belief that we working towards eternity, and it not this temporary reality. So we don't become comfortable in places where we don't belong.
And we also not adversary them saying, "You're a foreigner, how dare you judge me?"
Exactly. And then we don't build loyalties there, and we also don't become influenced by those environments.
Come up with some weird ideas.
I forgot. This was a God point, and that I was taking it literally. God will hold off punishment to save his chosen few. But I think that figuratively, there's a text in the Bible that says that the only reason God hasn't returned is because of his mercy. And so I think that is a very on brand thing for God, that holding off because
the winds of strife.
Right. Because time is going to save more people. Right. Yeah.
I think I have 2 more my life lesson points, and I think they I could just run them one into the other. The first one is that there is no time to be wasted when God says move or run. And the second one is that sometimes it's better to face our fears, face our this uncertainty, face leaving our comfort zone, and just go where God sends us initially. Because odds are we might end up there anyway. Right? And it was Lot to the mountains, it was Jonah to Nineveh, it's TJ to wherever. Right? So that was like, for me, that was so I'm stubborn. Like, I admit that. I'm defiant, I'm stubborn, hard headed on special occasions. And so I can see myself being told by God, not necessarily go, but do.
Okay.
And then I'd be like, I don't want it. I don't want it. Let me
Very
stay in
Moses.
this. Let me stay in this small city of comfort, of being like, of safety. And then I end up in the mountains anyway. So just go. Just go. That was my last point.
Okay. I think we're done here. This has been a very long episode. I didn't expect it to be this long, honestly. Yeah.
It was a long chapter.
Oh, that's true.
That's true. Let's see. How long is the next chapter? 20. Chapter 20 is a short one. It's 18 verses. We could have split this.
Yeah, we could have. Okay. So until next time, I don't remember how we end this thing. This has been What Shall We Say to These Things? I'm MJ.
I'm TJ.
And until next time, we're out.